One of my greatest inspirations has been the food justice and food sovereignty movements. And that's inspiring because food sovereignty says more than we have a right to food, which we do. It says that the right to food is about biology, but also about climate, about gender, but also about democracy, about self-determination, about all of these dimensions of food justice. I think the climate justice movement at its best says that. It says system change, not merely climate change. What we have to keep in mind when we say those things is that the system itself is not merely an economic system. It is a system of power, of culture, of economics, but how that hooks into the rest of the web of life. Now, I think we see some other inspiring lessons in responding to the end of cheap energy and to climate crisis coming out of Cuba. Without being romantic about that, we see with the end of cheap Soviet oil in 1991, an agroecological revolution in Cuba in which there was no starvation. There was a process of reinventing agriculture, which had been for centuries, not just in the 20th century, but for centuries, a sugar monoculture where industrial agriculture first develops around sugar and slavery. And Cuba was one of the most industrialized sugar monocultures of the 19th century, and that was carried forth by the Socialist Project. So the capacity to reimagine agriculture strikes me as powerful, and to feed the Cuban people, so that Havana, for instance, feeds more of its own people than any other major city on earth. Now, there's that, and again, without being romantic, there is the hurricane proofing of the island, where if you live in the United States, for instance, you are 15 times more likely to die from a hurricane than if you live in Cuba. Now, that doesn't mean everything is perfect, but we can see in these examples not just the politics from below, but the power of the state in dealing with precisely the kinds of massive world historical challenges that will be facing every state on this planet, those that are not underwater. So I think that we need to think simultaneously. We need to embrace a horizontalist approach. We need to insist on the radical democratization of these processes against the technocratic discourse of the IPCC on climate change, of the Anthropocene discourse. We need to insist on that. And we need to insist that in the kinds of climate changes that we're going to see, which will outstrip anything we've seen on this planet for the past 12,000 years, since the dawn of the Holocene, that the state must be used in a democratic, just, and sustainable way in an era of climate crisis. Otherwise, we see already the alternative. And we've seen the disasters in Florida, Puerto Rico, Houston, this runaway real estate development capitalism, Puerto Rico treated as ever like a colony, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be my suggestion, that we need to embrace both state strategies and horizontalist strategies in an era of climate crisis.